Hello, happy friends, creative friends out there at attending our Global Inspiration Stamp Team event, 2-day event. We're super excited to bring this to you, and I'm grateful to be on day one. And I can sit back and watch all kinds of presentations tomorrow and later tonight when the snow hits where we live. We're supposed to get a dumping of snow this afternoon. It hasn't been particularly cold, but that snow is coming. And I'm in southern Ontario. First of all, I guess I should introduce myself because you may not know me. My name is Diane, the Creative Inkster, and Inkster really and truly is my last name. And if you're out there, please leave me a comment so I know you're watching along and I know that I'm live and not just speaking to myself from my craft room. I live in Ontario, Canada, about an hour west of Toronto, and have been here in Guelph for quite a number of years, 30 odd years. Oh, hi, thank you so much, Maxine, for chiming in so I know someone is out there with me. Pardon me. I'm going to get started because I want to make sure, hi Vicki, who lives not too far down the road from me. I just want to make sure we get through this project and you get everything you need to see. Hi Francis, nice to have you joining as well. Oh wow, the UK, Guelph, and Arizona, my goodness. I love that about this. There's so much variety of people from all over the place, and that's super exciting. Alrighty, I am going to get started, and as you know, because you've probably been watching already, hi Rose, Deborah, we are using the mini catalog, the January to April mini catalog, and some projects from here, and the product that I plan to be using is from the Poetic Expressions suite. This is on page 61. I was really drawn to these dies right here. I see so much possibility for them, and I love the hummingbird, so I knew that the greeting and all that would work well for me. I'm using a different paper though, so I'm going to use this stamp set and mostly the dies from here. So this bundle is Thoughtful Expressions. In Canada, it's $76.50, which gets you quite easily into the first level of Celebration. My product from Celebration is going to be the Softly Stippled Designer Series paper, up here on page 8 of the Celebration brochure, and the opaque faceted gems. I'm going to add a few of those. So I'm going to show you this, how you get to this point. Outline of mine, and I'll leave it on the screen if you want to take a screenshot of it, but I will upload this, so not to worry. What I've got is the Thoughtful Expressions bundle. These are the Canadian retail prices, so the percentage will work the same in your market. If you just got the bundle, that would get you level 1, and I added on the cardstock and 2 ink pads. You can just substitute whatever you want to get me to at least $120, which is level 2. And that allowed me to get the softly stippled 12 by 12 DSP and the opaque faceted gems for free. So I will upload this so you'll see it in there. Good morning, Maureen. Good morning, Bev. Hello, welcome. All right, let me show you my project. I'm very excited. I love 3D projects. So that's what this is. This is a box, but it's actually a holder or a cover for a tissue box. So it's reusable over and over again. And it's so hollow on the inside. And I've made these a number of years ago for a bunch of applications. And I thought it was really great when someone has a cold and you're taking something over to them. You can make one of these up really quick, and they're super cute. I have one in my bedroom that has paper from about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, maybe, that I use all the time because it matches my room. So I'm going to show you how to make this. This box for tissue, so before you start worrying that my measurements won't be working in your market, I'm going to show you how to measure so you can make this and custom make it for whatever box you find. You could definitely do the more rectangular shaped boxes. These ones come from Dollar Tree, which we have in North America. This was $1.75 in Canada, which is actually a decent price compared to the Kleenex brand of it. And it has an opening here. I'm not overly concerned about the size of the opening that's going to go with the dies, but it's going to work out really, really cute. Okay, so here we go. What I did to get to know what my measurements will be. So I'm going to put the measurements over here on the right. Again, if you want to take a screenshot, or if you can take a screenshot. I'm just going to show you on the left how I measured it out, and I will upload this as well. It's all one page. Right, so I took my box and I measured it right from the edge to the edge, and I pinched the edges in, so I want it to be snug but not too snug. So it's 4 3/8 inch wide, which means that I need to add a tab piece, but I need at least 4.5 inches across for my cardstock. And then from top to bottom, it's about 5.25 inches tall. Actually, it's a little less than that. A little less, 5 1/8. So you really just need to add about 1/8 of an inch measurement, or up to the next 1/4 inch. And I apologize, this isn't in centimeters. I craft in inches. I purchase gas in liters, and I buy pounds of meat in imperial. I'm a very confused lady, but it works. So you just want to make sure if you have a pattern that is up and down, obvious up and down, like I kind of think this one is. This is the paper I'm using from Softly Stippled. It has an obvious up and down. So you just want to make sure you keep that in mind when you're cutting, that this is how tall it is. So that's what I put in my measurements, that 4.25 inches wide by 5 inches tall, so that we get that flowing look for the paper. All right, let's just get into making the project, and then you can measure it out yourself as you need to if you don't find that particular sized box. Right, so you need a paper trimmer / scoring tool. So I like our paper trimmer with the scoring blade on it. I keep my scoring blade at the top, so don't anybody panic when you see me coming down and think I'm going to do a little cut into it. I'm not. And I keep my cutting blade, the darker one, near the bottom. That's just me. So what we need out of this is, out of a 12 by 12 piece of DSP, we need 4 for the 4 panels that measure 4.25 inches wide by 5 inches tall. So what I'll do is I will open this here. This is the up and down pattern. I'll line the left side up at 4.25. And what this is going to do is make that piece fit just with a nice little border around the cardstock frame. So 4.25, double check. Check, measure twice, cut once. Isn't that what they say? 4.25 inches wide by 5 inches tall. So I can get 2 out of this. Cut one at 5. And I'll cut a second one at 5. I'm not overly concerned about it wrapping around and having the pattern meet from piece to piece. You could do that. I'm not that fussy. This way, if I cut it at 5, I have a nicer piece I can use on another card down the road, rather than a whole bunch of leftover bits and pieces. So there's 2 that are cut. Actually, this is kind of an interesting flowy pattern. Sometimes the flowers go one way, sometimes they go the other way. So there's 2. We need 4. 2 more at 4.25 inches wide. Once you've made that first cut, you know where your up and down is a little bit better, by 5 inches tall. So we should get all this out of one piece of Designer Series paper. I'm still trying to keep them all in this right, correct orientation. By 5. And there's another piece that I can keep for something. So just get them over here, because I get busy talking and thinking, and then I get things upside down. All right, so there's our 4 pieces of Designer Series paper, and then we need 1 for the top that's 3.5 by 3.5. So as luck would have it, once you cut that bit off, you're left with a piece that's 3.5 inches wide. So perfect. We just need to trim it down to 3.5 the other way. And you can like look through it and see, you can look and decide what is the best part of the pattern. We are cutting a hole in the middle of it, so let's remember that. All right, so there's my Designer Series paper piece. This is a nice generous piece left over that I can use for something else, or you could add as more decoration if you liked, if you flipped it and you like the colors on the back, that kind of thing. All right, then we need some cardstock. So for the frame, we need 4 pieces cut, and that will take 2 pieces of cardstock. Yeah, I know it is a pretty way to do your tissues, to show them and demonstrate them. All right, so we're going to cut, based on the measurements that I did, on cardstock number 1, where we have 2 sheets of it, we're going to cut 4 pieces that are 4 3/4 by 5 1/2. So if this sheet is 11, 5 1/2 is in the middle, so I got to cut this over at 4 3/4. And then that I'm going to tuck away to do something with afterwards by 5 1/2. And we're going to score some tabs on this too, so let's not worry about that. We just got our first 2, and then the second one, again, it's 11 inches this way, so we're going to cut over at 4 3/4. 4 3/4. And we're going to cut in half at 5 1/2. So if you have the international measurement pieces, then you'll probably have a little bit of scrap left over. And then from your second coordinating color of cardstock, and I'm going with Pool Party on this. This was Lost Lagoon. I guess I could have used Wild Wheat, but I've been using up Wild Wheat, so I decided to go with Pool Party. I'm going to cut from a full sheet. I'm only going to cut a piece that's 3 3/4 square. And that's great from this cast off piece I have. 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. All righty, so there's our cardstock cut down to here. The rest of it I have left over will be for any of the decoration pieces. I've already die cut my pieces just to make it a little bit quicker process. We're going to need something to make the frame at the top, and we're going to need something for any decorative pieces that you add on. You'll also want a little bit of white to also get your label cut out and so on. So that is done for me. I've already got those pieces done. All right, it's time to score our cardstock. All right, so I don't want this to be tricky, so we're going to just go step by step. We have our 4 pieces of cardstock, number 1, that are 5 1/2 inches tall. Let's double check that. By 4 3/4 inches wide. We are going to add a tab at the top and a tab at the side. So what I found, moving my cutting blade out of the way, was I put all my tabs on the right side of each of these pieces. That way, when I put it together, the tab will grab onto the open end on the other side. So with the 4 3/4 inch at the top horizontal in your scoring tool or the paper trimmer here, you're going to just set it up here at 1/4 of an inch. Someone else mentioned earlier today that rather than trying to work over here and get a little small piece, use where you have the flat part of your cardstock sitting on your trimmer and then line up using this excess part on the right. I think that's a great tip. So 1/4 of an inch, this is 4 3/4 across, and I'm just going to do these 4 measurements first. So I'm going to pull this over, I'm going to do the same thing. 1/4 of an inch. Number 3. And I will try to watch for comments. I'm not very good at that. Here we go. But I will read them. I promise to read them all afterwards. So there's a 1/4 inch. It's a small tab, but it's all we need across on the right-hand side of each of these. Now we're going to turn them 90 degrees to the left. So now those score marks are at the bottom. And along the top here, we're going to do another 1/4 inch on each one. Each one's going to get a 1/4 inch at the top. And that's what it ends up looking. There's the top and there's the right. We'll do the same thing on all 4 pieces. Important to be using your scoring tool. Get in there. I promise that you'll love this and you'll make more of them. People will love this as a gift, with whether they have a cold or not. And, oh, I think I forgot to cut. Did I forget to cut an extra piece? Hold on. Oh, yes, sorry. I'm going to cut one at 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. Okay. Well, we're going to get where we get going here. Yes, I think I needed another piece for the top that is 4 1/2 by 4 1/2. Did I not write it down here? I guess not. Okay, so in the pool part, or no, Lost Lagoon, I'm going to cut a 4.5 by 4.5 piece. That's for the top. Now it has no tabs on it, which is fine because we're going to fit it together like a little tent. That'll be the piece that goes across the top like that. All right, good. We are good to go, I think. Now we can move this out of the way, grab our scissors, and for this project I'm going to recommend tear and tape. Certainly it's great to have Stampin' Seal or Stampin' Seal Plus. The tear and tape's just a little bit thinner. Liquid glue, which I use for everything, I find you'd have to hold it to dry, and that may not be the best choice for this project. So what you want to do is there's a tiny 1/4 inch square piece at the top of each of your pieces that where you cross them. You want to cut that little 1/4 inch notch piece out because this is going to go down and this is going to go down. So that's the first little cutting, or the only little cutting piece, I guess. So find that little crossed 1/4 inch square and cut that guy out. I don't miter the edges beyond this. I don't feel like they need it. You'll have to see if that's your thing. And by that I mean that's where people will cut in a little edge on a flap or a tab. So there's less bulk, but I don't find in this I need it. In fact, it's kind of nice to have that little extra bit if it doesn't line up perfectly, because our eyes don't do a perfect job every time. All right, so there's our 4 little notches out. So now you're going to have 4 pieces, and they look like this. They have this little notch out. So grab your bone folder, your best friend in this project, and I'm going to fold the top flap, which is the shorter flap, down. And it is 1/4 inch, so this thick cardstock makes it a little bit harder to get straight down. So just work with it. You'll break down the fibers with your scoring, with your bone folder, and then I kind of pull it back so it's more flat. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the longer side. It's going to fold away. So both of your folds go in the same direction. There you go. All right. So this is what it looks like. I'll turn it this way. So your tabs. So then what's going to happen is your tabs are going to attach this way. So let's get through all this and we'll get them all scored. And if I forget, somebody stop me before I put the lid on, because we need to cut the hole out first. I can tell you I've done it a few times where I didn't cut the hole out first. And then it was like, oh, how am I going to get the hole in here? Well, a punch doesn't fit. So you want to be sure to cut your top hole for your tissues to come out well ahead of putting the whole thing together. Okay, so we're just pushing these 1/4 inch tabs in. Now you could make them 1/2 inch if you wanted. I just felt that's all they needed, so I didn't want to cut my paper any larger. Certainly you do you. I did this for one of my classes where I have persons with varying abilities, and we have a monthly class, and we did it with some really fun paper. And instead of just being a box for your tissues, each segment had 3 months of a calendar, those little mini calendars. So I took them apart and had like January, February, March, April, May, June, and so on. And then they could just use their tissue box and just keep turning it around. So that's dual purpose. And then I had some little critters and the paper suitable to that season of paper. That's kind of fun. And they really liked that one. So I think they would like to do that again soon. It's been a couple of years. Alrighty, here we go. There's our tabbed pieces. Let's work on the top, so we remember to cut the top out, and that's where our dies from Thoughtful Expressions are going to come into place. So this is the stamp set from the mini, Thoughtful Expressions, and we have dies. So I wanted to kind of show you how that works, and I just keep them, I take them out and I keep them inside my case when they match a specific stamp set. So we will get to that, but that's the stamp set that I'm using. here is the top piece. This is 4.5 square, and we have some pieces over here. So we have our 4 pieces of DSP that are going to go on our panels. Let's keep those guys together. And then on the top, we are going to put a cardstock and a DSP on top, and we're going to put the die through there with the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So you can make it as many layers as you like. It just becomes a little more difficult for the die to cut through more than 2 cardstock and a DSP. I may have to like push it through a little bit. So that's why I restricted it to this, but you could make these layers bigger if you wanted. So let's take this DSP, and we're going to keep our adhesive to the outside because we're going to cut a hole in the middle, so we don't want to have that impede the progress of the die. So just on the outside edges, I'm going to put a little bit of Tombow, my favorite glue, and I'm going to put it on top of the pool party that is just slightly larger, so very much like a layer on a card. There we go. And we have no glue in the middle, which is perfect for the die to go through. And then on this 4.5 inch square piece, we're going to glue down this. And again, we're going to stay to the outside of the pool party color on the back. There we go. And we'll just stick that on here. And now just make sure your pattern is the right way for how you want this to land on top. So if this is an up and down pattern, that you're looking at it in the right direction. Now, as it turns out with these boxes, this oval happens to be right smack dab in the middle. I did a starter one or a trial one with another one of our DSPs and some garden green, and I used a different set of dies. I was waiting for my thoughtful expressions to come, so I used the countryside dies, I think they're called. And so this one is more rectangular. But then the one that I did here, I'll just show you from the bottom side in. Then there's a hole right through here that the tissues come through, and then I made a little frame for it for the top. So this should be dry now. Let me bring my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine in. I apologize, my table's going to wiggle a bit with this. And I'm going to put the hole, the frame, so that out of these dies that nest, there's one I'm calling the opening. And that one, for reference sake, measures from edge to edge about 2 7/8. And I did kind of want it to be straight, so I have that one little bump centered at the top. Now, to see what it looks like as compared to the frame piece, which I'm going to show you how I made that. The frame piece has one size bigger than the opening and one size smaller than the opening. So there's actually another frame or die that goes in between these two in the kit, in the package. And that's how I made this. I've done mine already for this project, so it would be done, but I just basically cut that, and then I cut this out of a piece of cardstock, and that created the frame. So there's one die in between these two. And then for the opening, that's that middle die that falls in between. So let me stand up and on my plate. And I'm shooting for the middle. I'm not a fussy person when it comes to making sure it's perfectly straight, perfectly even. I kind of eyeball it. I'm good with that. And but you could always get your ruler out. And I'm going to go through forward one way, and I'm going to go back again. And I think I'm going to go one more time just for good measure. I apologize for my camera jiggling here. And then just pull this off. There's the die, and it should be mostly through. It might need a little coaxing. There we go. So this is the first two pieces, which I will keep those. I will definitely put those on the card. And then this piece here. Now, if it doesn't want to go through, you could slide your die back in and run it through again, and it'll be fine. But I think it just needs a little coaxing from the back. And by doing that, I can kind of get around it. It depends how your plates are. If they're really flat, it's going to go great. If they're not super flat, it may need a little help. So I think I'm just going to run this through again, just so it's a cleaner cut and it doesn't tear. So because I've taken those two other pieces out, it's going to fit. It's going to fit just fine. Could I have done them in separate pieces? Yes. I would have been stressed that they wouldn't line up, though. As much as I'm a let's not do it and measure perfect, I do want this hole to be in the right place. So I'm going to slide this guy back in, run it through. Now, if you only had one layer, you wouldn't have this extra step. All right, so here we go. That's going to be a little bit happier about coming out. There we go. All right, and so that's another piece I can use again. Now, if by chance it tore a little bit, just push that away. You're not really going to see it because you're going to put your framed piece over top, which I have already die cut. And because this is one smaller and one larger than the opening, this is going to fit just fine over top. No one's going to know. You could even put another one on the back side to hide that if you wish. Up to you, but pretty simple that way. So now I'm going to add the glue here. Now, because this is one smaller and one larger, I want my glue to be closer to the outside than the inside because it might just slip right through the hole. Alternatively, you could put the glue right by the stitching around here. I don't trust myself to do that well, so I'm just going to go on the outside edges here. Once again, I love my liquid glue. Little dab will do ya. Goes very far. All right, and I'm just going to line this up. And just like that, by pressing it down, it's going to be in place and nothing squished out the other side. Was a little bit there, that's fine. All right, so there's our top. That's the hardest part of this whole thing. Trust me. Alrighty, let's pull our other pieces back in and our tear and tape. That's the top. And each of these panels, if you keep the shorter tab at the top and the longer tab at the right, then you can put your designer series paper pieces down. Does that look right? Does that look right? I think that looks better. And now you can use whatever glue you like, whatever type. Just a fun fact on tear and tape and stamp and seal. I did a price comparison by the inch or centimeter because it would be the same. That tear and tape is actually cheaper. And I do know lots of people who use just tear and tape because I love the sturdiness of it. I do use a lot of liquid glue. Make a lot of projects, so I find liquid glue is the most economical generally. But for being great for lots of purposes, your tear and tape is a really good value. It doesn't have the ease of use of having it as a tape runner where you're holding it in your hand as many people prefer. So I just want to give those out as options though. So there's another panel done. 2 more to go. Keeping that long tab to my right so I know that my pattern paper is right way up. Oh, my pleasure. Marilyn, it's nice to have you pop in. I know we have tissues, Chrissy, all over our house, and honestly, when I go to buy an 8-pack, as I did this morning at the grocery store, because we always seem to be going out, like an 8-pack is then distributed around the house very quickly. Always good to have them handy in the bathrooms, in the living room, And I've made different covers over time for those. And they're like the regular size. These ones are a bit more expensive than your usual rectangular shaped tissue boxes that we are all used to having in our bathrooms and such, but it works. But you could also, instead of using this just as a cover for tissues, if you didn't cut the hole out, it would make a lovely box that you could put a cellophane bag with treats and things inside and just make it super cute and decorative, because we all have lots of pattern paper and we want to use that pattern paper up, and this is a fairly easy way to do that. Okay, now we're into assembly mode, and we build the outside panels first, and then we add the top on. So with the first one here, I'm going to need my tear and tape for this adventure. This is the long tab we're putting it on, so let's actually start by putting the tear and tape on them. So we are putting I'll show you how it goes together and then put the tape on. How it's going to go together is one tab on this side goes to a non-tab side here. And then we add a non-tab side here to this tab, and so on. And so we make the 4 panels. So we're going to put with your pattern paper facing up, you're going to put your tear and tape down the long tab. And it might stick over just a hair. That's okay. You can push it back as you go, as you peel off the backing. Or if you have the glass mat, or you have our silicone mat, you can have that down over here in case a little bit of the adhesive sort of squishes out, or instead of keeping it on paper. I tend to work on the grid paper mostly. I may be the first one today that isn't using the glass mat. I didn't get that during the pre-order. It looks really nice in action, I'll say that. So if you're thinking of getting the starter kit, that is a really nice perk. Rightio, so we've got that side. Now let's do the tops. Same thing, putting our tab on here. Remember too, when you're ready to place an order, to place your order through the demonstrator that invited you to this event. We're all independent and are working together just to share this with our customers and our team members, and invite you to place an order with your person in your country or your area. There we go, last one. I love tear and tape, it's great. All right, first panel, there's the tab, and here's an open end that's going to go here. So just get my pick your pick tool or scissors or your nail, just get underneath it and pull it off. If you're not using tear and tape, my question is why, but you can certainly see the value of it in this. And then it's just a wee bit wider than the 1/4 inch, so I'm just going to push the edge up. I don't even have to, because that's going to be on the inside. So I just want to line up the bottom and the top right along the score line. That's what it looks like on the inside. Okay, now we're going to rinse and repeat, do the same thing with the next segment. So we'll pull the tear and tape off, backing piece off. Find the flat edge, line up the score line on the left to the open edge on the right, press in place, make sure it's going to fold nicely, and the last one. So you see, I don't think you really need to do any mitering on this particular project. And we'll line this last one up on the score line to the open edge. Whoop, there we go. All right. Now you could reinforce with Scotch tape or tear and tape without the backing off if you really felt you needed to. I honestly feel that our tear and tape is strong enough to withstand this, so definitely a good idea. There we go. Oh yeah, perfectly. Travel tissues. Oh, great idea. And so then we have our last piece where we're going to join them. And so I think you've probably before seen that if everything's cut evenly, this should just line up perfectly. But wait a second, before I do that now. Yes, sorry, before I would do that, I want to put the top on. Okay, so we know the top is where the tabs are, where we have our tear and tape. That's the top. And we're going to go around and around exactly the same way to put this on. So just to give you a visual, then we'll fold in and add the next one and so on. So we're going to start with one end. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, where you start. I'd never given it any thought. Pull the piece of backing off, take this and make sure that it's sort of in the same up and down. But as I mentioned, with this particular pattern, you really can't tell which is the top because much of it is covered by that lovely frame we have there. So we're going to line this open edge with the fold, or the score line, and where your tear and tape probably is finished on the edge, and so you'll see it'll go over like that. And we'll just keep going around, and I do take them one step at a time just in case things get a little bit wonky. So I'm going to push that down, swing this arm around, and pull this over to the edge. You don't want to let it bunch up. You want it to be a fairly nice seam. And go on the inside as you go along. It's nice to press it down in place. And then the next piece off. Now we're not going to be able to hold it down on the table too easily because it's becoming quite 3D. And we'll fold our sticky side down, swing the arm around, line up once again, and then flip it over and give a little press on the inside because it gets a little bit more difficult when you have to go in through the whole piece. So now we have two edges to add. I'm going to add the top and then the side. Peel off my backing piece. Just there we go. I'm going to push that tab down, push any extra adhesive in that's being fussy and sticking out. You might want this to be the back of your project. You know, where you're putting the last little bit together. It doesn't always look quite as beautiful as the first front and so on. And then for this angle, this last little edge, we're going to tear the tear and tape off, and we're just going to gently, starting at the top where the opening is, gently line it up and push it into place. Here we go. And then once I've got it in place, I'm going to flip it over, stick my bone folder in the center, and press down on all those tabs to kind of give them an extra press and know that they're going to hold my box together. So now it's all about the decorating, and I have done that up ahead of time. I welcome your comments if you have any suggestions or ideas, and certainly what you thought of this project. I think it's such pretty paper, and there are a number of pretty patterns in here that would have worked just as well. So where's my sample here? On the sample one, I did the hummingbird in Wild Wheat. This time I have Pool Party, and I took one of the flowers and two of these leaves, and I'm just going to attach at the large leaf. So they both kind of fan out to the right, if you will, where those large leaves are in the center. I'm going to glue them together to make one long leaf, like that. So that's a little bit of liquid glue. Glue them together. I'll press and hold for a sec. And then I will put the center of the flower right on top there. So glue dots would work well for this too. If you're not a Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue aficionado like me, because we're not. Some people just can't do the liquid glue. It's a hot mess, and some of us are okay with it. So then to pop this up, I wanted this to be flowy. and let these two leaves not be glued right down. So I'm going to put a couple of dimensionals on the back. Now, of course, now that I've been playing here, I have to go hunting for my dimensionals. Does that ever happen to you? Happens to me all of the time. Now you could, if you wanted, I used a regular size one and it covered it up perfectly. You could, if you wanted, put some of the small ones or half of the small ones on the others. I'm not too concerned about that. I'm going to put this a little more on an angle this time. So I put my hand inside the box, or if I had the actual box inside, I can press down a little easier. And then add some dimensionals to my hummingbird. So I was looking at all kinds of ways people are coloring the hummingbirds. It's beautiful. I'm not a huge colorer. I'm more about stamping than coloring. And so people are adding all kinds of lovely color. But I did find if you stamp it and you take your blender pen, you can blend up some of this color on these quite nicely. All right, so there we've got him ready to go. And I'm going to stamp my greeting. You're in my thoughts today. And I'm going to use wild wheat so that I have the opposite from my other sample. I think I'm going to take this one to my day job desk. You're in my thoughts today. Here we go. And I will put that up on some dimensionals. You don't really need a greeting on this, but it's kind of nice, I think. We have beautiful greetings and sentiments in our various stamp sets, and beautiful. You know what else would look really nice with this is silver or gold ribbon or twine, or the Simply Elegant twine from the annual catalog, or even the pool party other celebration item would look really pretty behind this. And then I did love these opaque gems, opaque faceted gems, and I'm going to add them in Pool Party. This is a celebration item at the level 1. So I'm going to put one up here. Whoops. Sure. One up here. And then I'm going to take one of the big ones, and I'm going to put it in the middle of the flower, right by his beak, and then another smaller one on my greeting. So that, ladies and gentlemen who may be watching, is my project. That's how it works when it's all put together. So cute, isn't it? Thank you for that, Deborah. I appreciate your comments. Yeah, I think they would take some of those really ugly, or if you have Christmas left over and you're done with Christmas, take that kind of away. So I will buy another couple at Dollar Tree and put these somewhere kind of special. So just as a recap, I use the Thoughtful Expressions bundle, and I have 2 cards that I've also made with this bundle to show other versatility with it. Actually, no, I'm sorry, not with this bundle, but with the paper, which is softly stippled from Celebration. So we did this one at my class this week. It's just one small panel layered on, and then just added a greeting. This is retired. These are a couple of retired bits that I was using up, but then on the inside, I'd put an extra strip here for this particular card I had on display. And then for my upcoming class in February, we're going to use the butterflies, which are from the Natures Suite, and this same DSP, and another greeting, but it's more of that beautiful DSP. Yes, sorry, it was the DSP, not the stamp set that I've used this for. Yeah, and then your softly stippled freebie and your opaque gems. So thank you so much for watching, being here with me, and allowing me to share my ideas with you. I'm going to put our project sheet up on the page, which has the items that I ordered, how you get the celebrations, and the measurements for my project. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope you give it a try. Thanks again. Enjoy the weekend. Have loads of fun. Tuck these ideas away. Revisit them, come back, and we'll look at our older videos because there's some gems in there on just different techniques and ideas. And remember to order through the demo who invited you. Next up is Chrissy Hanna's. I'm looking forward to watching hers on replay. And our next session is going to be in March 8th and 9th. So if you want to put that on your calendar, we'll see you back then. Thanks, ladies and gents. Bye for now.